Hey, welcome to another Artcast. Today I'm going to do things something a little different. I've been doing sketch cards, which have been fun, but I got to take a little break because I need to get my comic book done, and the inside's pretty much all done except for the lettering. But I need to work on the cover here. So even took this a step further. Usually I just work off of the blue line sketches, but I tightened it up just a little bit with pencil for one, so you guys can see it on camera, and two, because I this is the cover, so I want my lines to be fairly tight, and it's easier to go off of something that's tight underneath, meaning the dark pencils. So anyway, um, this is just going to be me basically inking this page, and feel free to ask questions if you want or watch. I don't know how much talking I'll be doing. I'll try to mention things along the way, but I'm going to try to take when I usually do the pencil sketches or when I do sketch cards. I usually run through everything real quick. This is a more finished piece, so I'm going to take a little more time. So if that interests you, then by all means, keep watching. I'm just going to go ahead and start working. So, and I got the chat open if anyone decides that they want to ask any questions or anything. So I'm using the Pentel Pocket Brush for inking this, which isn't quite as tight as um, as my Sable brushes, the ones you dip in ink and then it's and lay the ink down. The only thing is my good brush has a little split in it, which means that when I try to ink it, I'm getting double lines, and it's unfortunately it kind of sucks because it's an expensive brush. So I don't know if that's something that can be repaired. But this is, for what it is, this is an excellent tool, especially since it's portable. Um, so I should be able to get decent lines with this. This is the first issue of this comic book. This is My Young and the Dead, which is basically a kids versus zombies story. It's kind of my tribute to like Goonies, Monster Squad, those type of movies, but with zombies instead of classic Universal style monsters um, or pirates and gangsters like in Goonies or Monster Squad. Um, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Trying to concentrate on this stuff. So, but anyway, the first one I did all with my Sable brush, and they were, it was lines were really tight and everything. But when you're the only one working on like a comic book, because typically, traditionally, comics go from usually like a penciler, then somebody will ink it, and somebody else will do the lettering. But when you're the sole creator of a comic, it takes a long time. So sometimes we have to find tools that kind of expedite the process. And this Pentel Pocket Brush is one of those tools because it saves time because I don't have to dip my ink in the inkwell every time. It's just a constant flow of ink until, of course, it runs out. Which there's not a lot of heavy blacks in this, so hopefully I won't run out of ink. This here is my main character, Sam. This is basically the story of Sam and his brother Tad, um, and they end up in the midst of a zombie apocalypse, and has some zombie tropes, but I've done a few things that I think are a little original for a zombie story. Partially because it is a sort of an all ages story, or at least PG or what I like to call PG 1980s, or before there was PG-13, like Goonies. Again, I'll keep referencing that because that's kind of the style I'm trying to capture. So nothing too risque, but there, if you've seen Goonies, you'll know there's certain subject matter and things like that is brought up in the film that I I'd like to consider this comic all ages, but there are certain things like that are sort of PG. So, but anyway, so obviously the zombies, although I want them to be threatening, um, I mean, there's not going to be a whole lot of gore other than the zombies are decaying and things like that. So it's a little gross. But now the comic is actually in black and white. But if I ever do it in color, I will probably even not have the zombies bleed. And if they bleed, it'll just be like a greenish goo. Like their blood turns green, and as they zombify. That way, it's not like bloody, because you can get away. Yeah, I think I can get away a little more if they have green blood. But since this is black and white, you're not going to really tell. So there's different things that, and if you read the book, I don't want to give too much away right now, that I do. That's not your typical zombie story. But it is, it's mainly about the characters. But what happens at the end of the first one, which I'll give a little spoiler, they wind up trapped in a treehouse, and zombies are surrounding the bottom of the treehouse, so they're kind of stuck there. And that's where we pick up, and that's what you're looking at right now. If you look, they're all kind of looking down the trap door of the treehouse. So it's in in a way, if you see in the original, excuse me, oh man, I have to get some water or something. If you've seen the original Night of the Living Dead, this is kind of a cross between Goonies and Night of the Living Dead. Excuse me, hold on. Where in that movie they're trapped in a house that's boarded up. This one, they're trapped in a treehouse. And whether or not they get out of this treehouse in this issue or further issue, something you'll probably have to follow along. Eventually, I'm trying to get this book done for an event called Keen Halloween. Excuse me, man, I got something in my throat bad. Which is a Halloween-centric kind of, almost like a comic or pop culture convention, which is going to be at the very end of September. And the idea behind that is that the whole idea of the convention is to give people ideas for how to do their Halloween party and festivities and things like that. And also, to sell artwork and all that kind of stuff. And there's panels and workshops and things like that. But anyway, so I want to get this book done for that event. So that's why I'm doing this on the Artcast tonight. I kind of segued away from what I was originally talking about. I'm sorry about that. Maybe it'll come to me. Okay. I'm going to wait. He's got a hockey stick that he's using as a weapon here. But I'm going to wait and use certain, like, straight edge lines. I am going to use using my ruler and like a micron pen or something to do those. And I'll do the same with the pupils and the irises of the eyes, because sometimes it's difficult to get that look with this brush pen. This round circle sometimes can be problematic. So now I'm kind of moving over to Tad, Sam's brother. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So anyway, so I'll have this comic book done, hopefully, and ready by the end of September. And my goal is to start running it as a webcomic. So you guys will be actually be able to read this all online for free. I'll probably issue, once I get it running, I'll probably, issue maybe a page a week. And I've heard some people say that that's not enough for a dramatic comic, or but I'll kind of have to figure out how much, if I have enough pages in the can, meaning finished, that I can do 2 pages a week, that would probably be ideal. But I think what I'm going to do is, since the first 2 issues are done, or will be done, I'll just issue, I'll issue a page a week, and if somebody is interested, give them the option to download either a digital version of either one of the books, and for what, 99 cents or whatever for a digital version. I don't think that's too heavy of a price to pay if you can't wait for the story. So I think that's probably what I'll do, and then I'll also offer printed versions. So I've just been waiting to make sure I have more pages finished before I actually launch the web comic. I don't want to get in a position where people are having to wait for me to finish pages, so it's better that at least a portion of it's done before I do that. And usually when I do these webcasts, I'll usually go for about an hour. Sometimes they'll go over. I'd like to say my time management skills are pretty good, but it's quite possible I won't have this finished inking in an hour. So I may not finish the whole thing then. I don't want to go too much over that with one of these. So I'll do what I can in that amount of time. And then what I can, I'll just turn it off and probably finish it myself. And although I do kind of like drawing and quiet and narrating to people and answering questions, sometimes I like to turn on a movie or music while I do it. So just a second, if I don't get it finished, I'll probably pop on a movie, and I say watch, but I usually just listen because I'm busy drawing. But listen to a movie while I finish the rest. So, and then after that, I really need to color this thing, and I'm wondering if I should stream the coloring too. The problem is over Ustream, and I'm still, since, you know what, I don't know. I mean, I started kind of doing this thing on Ustream because it has the chat, but since there's not a whole lot of people or anyone on the chat now, I might do the color version over on Google Hangouts, and I can just stream that to YouTube. Google Hangouts has a little better setup for doing for screen capturing. The only way you can screen capture on Ustream is to use this third-party software, and then they put all their ads all over it, and the quality is not as good. So maybe I'll stream the coloring on over YouTube with Google Hangouts. Yeah, I still would like to find a way to do a chat on Google Hangouts. I've mentioned that before, but so far it's not really designed for that. But I like Google Hangouts a lot better than Ustream for those purposes. You can tell if you've seen some of the sketch cards I've done recently that I'm going a lot slower. than on those. And again, because with those type of sketches, it's more or less just an exercise. I just want to get stuff done, you know. Uh, this is going to take quite a bit longer because it's needs to be a little, I don't want to say perfect, because as all artists know, nothing's perfect. This little guy, this Tad, this character that he's holding is called the Tickle Monster, which is sort of like basically a Cookie Monster doll that he uses, that has a little voice box in it that says, I'll tickle you, I'll tickle you. Like, I don't want to do like in a monster voice. So, and then there's going to be more to that as the comic goes on. And all right, so I'm going to move over to this guy, Mitch. He's kind of like, not exactly, but he's kind of like, if you've seen Goonies, he's kind of like Mouth. He's kind of the smart ass kid. He's kind of like a little perv. Um, he's the one that would normally be getting our main character into all kinds of trouble. But since they are sort of in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, there's more, I guess there's more real trouble. So he just kind of, I play him for a little bit of comic relief. And most of the characters are designed to be, you know, at each other's throats or teasing each other along the way, or some of them don't quite get along. And I think that's kind of what makes something like Goonies or Monster Squad work. And if some of you younger folks, if you haven't seen either of those movies, I could point to a more recent film that's also kind of a tribute to those movies. Super 8, if you've seen that, it's kind of a similar principle, which I think I need to rewatch that. Because that is really a really good movie. Oh, and as you might be able to tell, I don't know if you can see he's kind of got the Atari symbol on his shirt. I'll probably ink that with my pen, but it's not that he's into retro clothes or anything. The comic actually takes place in the 80s, so characters don't have cell phones or anything like that. It's a lot of the slang is 80s slang, and again, I just wanted to capture some of the things from Goonies, Monster Squad, those type of movies. So I set it in the 80s because everyone remembers the zombie apocalypse of the 80s. So obviously this is some sort of alternate universe, because I don't remember that happening. So his weapon, I want it to be a little more makeshift. It's like a homemade sword. So I am going to ink this one with the brush pen and not with a straight edge and my microns, because this one I want to be a little more, I don't want to say organic, because it's not really organic, but like made of wood, and not finished, like it was just put together homemade by a kid. And actually, I think some of this long line, I think I will use the straight edge for that. So in a way, I kind of lied. But for the rest of it, where there's some curves and things, I'll use the brush pen. Oh, there's something stuck to my pen I gotta clean off. It's like a, I think I got it off. All right. I'm just going to keep kind of rotating around to the next character. This character, his name is Lloyd, and as you can see, he's got kind of a homemade Thor's hammer that he made. This is probably one of my favorite characters of the group. The idea behind him, he's kind of a outcast, kind of a nerdy. He's like a Dungeons and Dragons. He's into Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, and making swords, and a bit of a, I'll say LARPer, although I'm not sure if that term was, when that term was coined. It was probably coined, I think, after the 80s. So he would never really be referred to as a LARPer. I don't think, and that's something I probably should research a little more. But so he's, he's kind of the kid that got picked on for those type of things. But when the zombie apocalypse happened, he, because of his, knowledge of, nerd culture and things like that, and playing live action role play and things like that, he actually kind of comes into his own, and turns out he is the right person to have on your side. So he kind of ends up to being one of the heroes, where other characters who may be quote unquote cooler before all this goes down are kind of left standing, not knowing what to do, or we kind of find out what they're really made of. And I kind of liken this to, have you ever seen Aliens, the sequel to Alien, James Cameron, the one colonial marine that's played by Bill Paxton. He's kind of Hudson, I think is his name. He's like a badass, he's this and that, he talks a bunch of crap, and it ends up when things go down, he's like just shaking his boots. He doesn't know what to do, and in the end he kind of comes around and eventually kind of redeems himself. But it just, when tragedy strikes and bad things happen, the real test of character kind of comes out, and you get to see who people really are when they're under circumstances like that. And so that's the idea behind this character, Lloyd. So he's kind of got a trench coat / kind of army surplus jacket that, I don't know, there's a kid I went to school with who's this character is loosely based on, and we used to joke because he had this trench coat that he could pull any object imaginable, kind of like Felix the Cat in his magic bag, or And that was kind of the joke. So I might kind of run with some of that if we get to a point where somebody needs something, he just so happens to have it inside his coat, and that might be a running gag. And he's a little bit of a metalhead too, as you can tell. You see part of his Ozzy concert shirt here that I'm inking in right now. And if you have read the first issue, he appears just briefly um, in the first issue. He doesn't get a lot of, I'll say, screen time, even though this isn't a movie, it's a comic. So, what, I don't know, panel time? I don't know if that's actually a phrase, but maybe I just coined a phrase. Um, so he doesn't get a lot of panel time in the first one, but he plays a lot larger role in the second one. And he has a sidekick, which I'm gonna get to inking in a minute after I'm done with him, and I'll explain a little bit about her too. So you can kind of tell by the hairstyle, he's kind of got this feathered, kind of long hairstyle. A lot of the characters have that. And so when I was researching like costume designs and things like that, it's I need to find a good source for like costume, like when I'm looking into like doing 80s fashion or whatever. Because I looked on the internet and hold on a second. And you look up certain things like 80s clothing, and I don't know, it's not really what I remember. A lot of it's just it's like what people, like, I don't know, like what people kind of expect, or 80s fashion or whatever to look like, but not exactly what I remember. So I actually went through like high school and junior high yearbooks and looked at some of the hairstyles and things from that, and that was helpful. So, but there needs to be a better resource out there for that type of thing. And if anyone knows of any, I'd be more than grateful to have that information passed along. I think when I was illustrating the inside of the comic, I illustrated all the glasses, all his glasses, and another character has glasses, and inked them and everything. But it's really hard to get, especially when their heads are turned in weird angles, to get those glasses to look right. So I went ahead and erased all of the glasses in the comic, and then I created a vector file of made a pair of glasses, and then I was able to just distort those and place them back on the figure, and it made it easier. And sometimes those are like little tricks and things you do. Some people illustrate fully digital, and they have all those little items like glasses and things like that at their disposal that they can just paste in, or like emblems, like if you draw like Superman, instead of having to redraw his S over and over again, they just got a file and they'll tweak it and turn it around so it matches whatever perspective they're in. And eventually I do really want to try to go full digital for comics. It's a little, the Manga Studio program, there's a little bit of a learning curve, and right now it's just easier for me to do what I know how to do. Um, Even though if I was illustrating a Manga Studio, there'd be a lot of shortcuts I could take that would save me time. It's just finding the time to initially learn that software and everything, um, which I haven't really done yet. So, but maybe issue 3. But then I worry that, when I collect all these together, maybe it starts looking different because I switched. But sometimes you don't need to worry about that. Like if you look at early, like almost any early like comic strip or whatever, whether it's Peanuts or Calvin and Hobbes or anything like that, if it's a long running series, the exception of maybe Bone, they all the early stuff usually always looks different. And sometimes you just kind of have to accept that and not worry too much about it, because otherwise you'll do what I used to do, which is just redraw things over and over. I had a comic it's kind of on the back burner right now, that I re-illustrated the first 4 or 5 pages over and over again, because I would start and I wasn't happy with it, and then I put it away and I pull it out and I redo it again and again. And sometimes you just got to bite the bullet, or else you're just recreating the same thing over and over because you're a perfectionist and you're not happy with it. And you have to get to a place where you can say, I'm going to make this look as good as I can right now, and I'll still learn things and become a better artist as I go, but do that on other projects or future projects, so you have kind of more output and more, and you put things out. Because if you're constantly worried about having everything perfect, you're never going to have anything out there because you're afraid to show it to people. So it's a lot of people have problems with that, but the sooner you can kind of get over that and just put work out there, which is, I think, one of the good things is now that the internet is so prevalent, it's so easy to do that. I drew this and then share it on Instagram or whatever, and then just move on to the next thing. Looks like we're about a little over half hour in, and I assume I'll probably get most of the major characters done, so in an hour, I think. So right now, the character I'm working right now, her name is Ox, and it's short for Oksana. She is sort of my, if you have seen Goonies, Monster Squad, or or Super 8 or whatever, there's always a heavy set kid, and it's always been a boy. So I figure, well, why not make my heavy set kid a girl? But I don't just want her to be kind of a, as one dimensional as some of those characters where they're just, Horace and Monster Squad, or Chunk and Goonies, where they're just, that's all they are, is hey, this is the fat kid. So she's really tough. She's athletic too. She plays soccer, and that's why she has her jersey on, because this whole apocalypse thing takes place early in the morning. She was just getting ready to go out and play, and that's when everything went down. So you'll find some of my characters, they're still in their pajamas running around, because that's what they were wearing when everything went down. But anyway, so she is actually a Russian character who it's not written in that she has an accent or anything. I don't know that she will. But I wanted sort of, with having all these characters have suspicions or conflicts or things about each other, and since this does take place in the 80s during the Cold War, I thought that would give some reason for some of the other characters maybe not to trust her, and whether she can be trusted or can't be trusted. That's something you would need to figure out, or need to wait and find out. But I think it gives a good dynamic and a good kind of jumping off point to have some banter and back and forth between some of the characters. So. But anyway, this is the first issue that she will appear in, is the second issue that I'm illustrating now. And she's kind of friends with Lloyd. And I don't know if they're the character I just drew. I don't know if I've decided if they were friends beforehand or if they just kind of met up and mutually realized that they're in the middle of something that they need to work with each other on. But anyway, so that's Oksana, or Ox for short, which is usually what she goes by. Oh, that's pretty thick. I didn't want to lay that down that thick, but I can fix that in Photoshop. It might be all right without a fix. I don't know. We'll see. I'm trying to keep the lines kind of thin for the most part right now. When I start going over their outlines, I'll add some more thickness to them. I do want the line weight to vary some. That's why I'm using a brush as opposed to using like a micron. That's just it'll be a standard line width throughout when you use that. It doesn't really vary. And sometimes that's a nice look to have. But I kind of like the traditional inking of comic books. So that's why I use this brush pen. I'm anxious to get coloring on this. I think I'm gonna try a different technique than I used on the last cover, and maybe even redo the first cover that I did for the first issue. I just want to try a different technique. I wasn't too happy with my coloring. That's one thing that I'm still not as confident about, is my coloring and painting skills. So I'm gonna really try to get this thing to look right. And if I can't do it, then I might have to hire somebody to do the coloring. Although I really do want to. It's something I need practice, so it's something I want to learn to do better. Okay, I think she's pretty much done. Okay, now we're going to move on to a brother and sister. It's actually their treehouse, and it's kind of funny thing is it used to belong to the other brothers, Sam and Tad. It used to be their treehouse, and their parents ended up getting a divorce, and they moved out. And these are kind of the new kids in town, and they actually bought the house, so they get the treehouse. It's in the backyard, so it's it's just, you'll be able to tell from some flashbacks from when the original owners had the house. It's decorated with a lot of Star Wars stuff and things like that, whereas this guy kind of redecorated with more sports stuff because he's a bit more of a jock, more into sports than Sam was. And that's kind of another point that brings out drama is that they used to kind of have a club in the treehouse, and then um, Sam and Tad and Mitch and those guys were all part of the club. And then, of course, when these guys got the house, that club was over. So they're not too happy about that. So just some more sticking points that kind of builds character, I guess. So you could say this character, Rocky, is sort of the wet blanket of the group. He's kind of the naysayer and doesn't really, you know, want to go along with what the other kids think is right. And he's quick to judge he's the oldest, and he's kind of quick to just judge all the younger kids and basically call them names and things. He's not the nicest guy. Um, so we'll see how his character arc goes. But um, his sister Stephanie, on the other hand, um, she is sort of she's the main character. Sam kind of has a crush on her a little bit, so which I'll get to inking her in a minute. But yeah, this guy doesn't really, you know, he kind of thinks he's better than some of these other kids, and that kind of remains to be seen if he is or not. Now that the chips are down. Another character with wristbands. Oh, I draw wristbands. Wristbands, when I was a kid, they were pretty popular. So a lot of people had wristbands, especially if you're into sports and things like that. Wristbands and striped socks, which you don't really see them here because their feet are all behind the trap door. But and headbands, he's got the headband too. You don't see that as often anymore, but in the '80s, have you ever seen the band Loverboy? Mike Reno, the lead singer from that, he was rocking the headband. And his baseball bat, I'm gonna come back to. I'll draw that with my straight edge and my pens. Give him the sweatpants and a little tie on the sweatpants. Now on to the last character, Steph. So she is Rocky's little sister, and she's a lot, lot more friendly than her brother. You find out she ends up kind of having to apologize for her brother quite a bit. She's a nicer character, but she actually has a skill that kind of comes in handy, which you find out in towards the end of this issue. Second. Oh. I'm drawing these lines in here. Her hair is dark black, so you might not see these unless I go in and add some of these, turn some of these lines white. But just for now, I'll just do that. All right, so I think that's about all the characters except for, I gotta go back in and add their eyes and things like that. So I don't know, maybe I should do that now, and then I'll come back and I can do some of these leaves that are coming from the bottom of the tree house. I don't know if you can tell what's going on here, but they're all kind of peeking down this trap door of the tree house. Um, and then behind them is actually the ceiling of the interior of the treehouse, and there's going to be some posters and things right here that are pinned to the ceiling. And I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to have those say yet, because I don't want them to distract too much. But so this is actually the right orientation. So up here, where you see these trees, there's going to be the logo. Once we, once I turn this into the actual cover of the comic. So right now, let's switch gears, and I'm going to bring out these, I say Micron, but it's not actually a Micron, which is a brand name. This is a just Viper Castle Pit Artist Pen, um, which any of you guys that are into manga, that's kind of what a lot of manga artists will use, these type of pens, and maybe not this exact brand, but just making some straight lines. This hockey stick. And this, wow, that looks kind of thin. I don't know if I'm all too happy with that, but let me, let me add the top of that. So I gave this character a hockey stick as his weapon. Again, basically, they just kind of pick what's up at the treehouse, and since it's Rocky's treehouse and he's into sports, he's got a lot of, he's got baseball bats um, and sports things lying around, tennis rackets and things like that that they can use as weapons. And then Lloyd kind of shows up with some of his own weapons. That's why some people have all the homemade makeshift swords and things. But the main character, which is sort of loosely based on myself, even though I admittedly never fought zombies or anything like that. So this character, Sam, I gave him a hockey stick because when I was a kid, I used to love playing street hockey. I mean, when I was real little, I'd be out there with a bucket on my head. I guess that was my helmet, and I'd be out there playing. I remember. I think I don't know. I don't know what I used for a puck, but I never liked the balls because I always pretended it was like on the ice and things like that. So I always use something as a puck, and of course they don't work too well on asphalt. So, but anyway, so and as I grew up, I kind of got less into sports. Although I played baseball for a good six years, I think, little league. But I was always more interested in drawing. So anyway, a little bit about myself. Which I think is a better career choice because I don't think I was good enough to be any kind of a professional ball player. Let's see. I want this to kind of curve a little bit, so I'm not going to use a straight edge for that. It's fun to draw like things like wood and rocks that aren't so even or so organic like the characters. Let's move around. And you see, Ox is kind of. This wasn't intentional, but it looks like the girls are the only ones that don't have weapons, and that's not because they aren't good with weapons. Like I said, Stephanie, she has sort of a skill that comes in handy, which I don't want to mention yet, so I didn't want to give that away. So that's why you don't see her with the weapon. But with Ox, she's just kind of like she'd rather kind of beat someone down with her bare hands, I guess. Like I said, she's kind of tough. So we'll see. That messed up. That's a fix it and post thing, which again, this isn't a movie, so we don't really have post production, but what I mean is fix it in Photoshop. So when I scan that in, I will fix that little line there that I messed up on. Somewhere on this bat there was a stripe, and I'm not looking at the inside, so I don't know, but I'm just gonna say it's like right about here. And if that's not where it is, then I can remove it. So let me go ahead and get a little smaller pen and Let's fill in their pupils and their irises. And there'll be a little highlight on their eyes. I always do that when I go into Photoshop or whatever. It's just as easy as adding a little white dot when I do that. So it gives it a little more life than it has now. Because typically eyes will reflect light. Wherever light source is coming from, you'll usually see a glare coming off the eyeballs because they're shiny like that. So when I finish this, I'm going to have two different versions of this comic. So I'm going to do an artist edition, which I did with the first issue. And it's a little bit smaller of a size, almost kind of like the size of like a manga. Like a digest size, more or less. But it's all hand put together. It's not traditionally like printed like my standard version is, and it's limited edition, signed and numbered. And I try to give a little extra, so I put it together. And I usually, with the first one, I wish I had it in front of me. I'd pull it out and show you guys, but it's kind of like got a gatefold, and it's got bands that look like caution tape that says "Beware zombies" or something like that. It's wrapped around, and it's kind of nicely put together. With this one, I think what I'm going to do, they're actually peeking out of this trap door. So I think with this one, I'm going to have like a folding cover that kind of opens like that. So you'll see the door of the treehouse that says, keep out, and maybe even the shadow of zombies kind of against it, and then it'll open it up and you'll see the kids. So if I get around to that, that's probably what I'll do. So I'm going to go ahead and ink Lloyd's glasses, even though I may just redo them in digitally in Photoshop. But for now, if I ever end up selling this or anything, it'll look more finished if I just draw it in. Just very difficult to get the perspective on glasses. Here he's just facing straight on, so it's not that big of a deal. But and to make them all asymmetrical, or symmetrical, sorry, so each side looks the same. So we're coming up on about an hour. I've got the characters pretty much done. All I got to really do now is just do some of the leaves and things like that, and so yeah, I got a decent amount done for right now. So I think I will call the live stream quits on that note. But I'll continue this. I don't want to make these live streams too long. Keep them about an hour if I can. So anyone that's watching along, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate your interest. And I will keep posting more about this comic as it comes out, and about events I'm at and things like that. But you can always find me on my Facebook page, facebook.com/circworks, or on my website, circworks.com. Circworks on Twitter, Circworks on Instagram, Circworks, all that stuff. So again, thank you, and And I'll also post a recorded version of this probably tomorrow, so anyone who couldn't watch it live will be able to watch it at their leisure if they wish. So anyway, thank you very much. We'll see you guys later. Bye bye.